Oh my God, was this a horrible show.
Showed a clip from Thunder of Roddy Piper booking Hulk Hogan versus Sting for Super Brawl with a championship on the line. They announced that the Giant had been injured by Kevin Nash at Sold Out. And they promised to show it later, and they promised we would all be sick to our stomach. Oh boy, there's a tease. I can't wait to see that and throw up. He said Larry Zbyszko had beaten Scott Hall, but it was a hollow victory. They didn't really explain how, but they did say that Dusty Rhodes had now joined the NWO, which explains why Hall was talking about Dusty last week. Ultimo Dragon wrestled Nacho Libre. It was El Dandy, but I promise you, he looked exactly like Jack Black and Nacho Libre.
El Dandy.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I was just thinking about there was a thing in the 90s, El Dandy. Everyone just loved El Dandy. And granted, El Dandy was quite awesome. El Dandy was just fine in this match.
He was a guy.
There was nothing spectacular about this match or the performance here of El Dandy.
It was a Ultimo Dragon showcase, and he was the guy the Ultimo Dragon kicked and, well, submitted. Raven and the Flock came out mid-match. By the way, listen, this isn't about them. It's about how excited everyone was to be watching Nitro in this first hour. When Raven came out, it was like Jesus and his disciples had returned to walk the earth. People were going nuts for Sick Boy.
You're right, but you know what? You have 3 hours, 180 minutes minus commercials. And they had to bring these guys out in the middle of the match.
They always have to.
Dude.
I don't know why. That's just what they do.
And not only that, they come out, and the announcers explain that these men have been told they can no longer be at ringside. But here they are. They must have bought tickets. It's later confirmed that, in fact, they did buy tickets. Which begs the question, why did you even bother doing the storyline?
I don't know.
What a waste of time. They're not allowed to be here, but they figured out they could buy tickets, and so they're just here every week.
Yeah.
What a waste of breath.
And hitting the ring, as we'll see
And
later.
it made the company totally incompetent.
Yeah. So this is short. Dragon won. Hideki brought it into the Dragon Sleeper. That is a clean finish from the opener on Nitro. Had a short Lex Luger promo. He was disgusted by what Nash had done to Giant.
What the hell was he doing here, looking so sultry into the camera? It's like some sort of 900 line. Plugging the Giant.
Wow, you took this different than I did.
Dude, watch it again.
Maybe I'll go back and check.
I couldn't even, it was like...
He was very low key.
You gotta watch it again.
Perhaps the whispering was a little come hither.
It was a very, very come hither promo.
Well, what he said was if the NWO was going to play for keeps, then WCW needs to do the same thing. Maybe playing for keeps means something different than what I thought it meant. They went live to Chattanooga, Tennessee, where Gene Okerlund and the Nitro Girls were hanging out with the winners of the Nitro Party contest. It was a little funny because they all started off outside and there's people everywhere. And they have to squeeze through this crowded hallway, and they are squeezing through this crowded hallway, and they just get into a small room, but the small room is empty. And here Gene can finally speak. He just says, we're here at the party, we're having a great time, blah, 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 blah. Brad Armstrong versus Goldberg.
That's all you got out of this party?
Okay, tell me more.
They were at a frat house. You must have... How did you not see this? They go into a frat house, there's 9,000 people there. The Nitro Girls are there dancing. There's cops. Gene's in a throng of people. He's just surrounded. How did you miss any of that?
I didn't get into detail, but I said all of that.
This needs to be talked about more.
Okay, talk about it more.
It's the biggest fucking Nitro party of all time.
They squeezed a lot of people into this frat house.
There's no way this night ended without laws being broken.
I don't know. Well, there's a clip later. And keep in mind, it's 3 hours long. So had there been drinking going on, there would have been some drunk people by the end of this. But I saw a guy like right behind Gene take a big swig from a can, and I figured it's Coors or Miller. And I went back to check. No, it was Diet Coke.
There was a lot of Diet Coke here.
So there may have been off camera a lot of crowd control going on.
Well, there were cops there, as noted. On camera, everybody was attempting to be sober. But listen, people watched this and they couldn't believe it was a real Nitro party. They thought this had to be a gimmick. Because there's no way this many people could be gathering together to watch Nitro. And it was the best Nitro party footage of all time. This was a Nitro party where it was like, God damn, I'd like to be at that Nitro party. Normally you look at it and you're like, what a bunch of geeks. I would not want to be at this party.
There's been one cool one before this.
Now, granted, there were a whole bunch of geeks at this party. But there were the Nitro girls.
And other girls.
Yeah. Looked like a hell of a shindig.
This was probably the biggest night in University of Tennessee Chattanooga all year. So then we got Brad Armstrong versus Goldberg. Armstrong comes out in his sweater reading Armstrong Curse. He attempted to jump Goldberg at the bell. This was foolish. Goldberg, I believe he debuted the press slam into the power slam move. So Armstrong dodges a corner charge and does a little strut, but unbeknownst to him, Goldberg is thrown on the brakes in the corner. So he just turns around, spears the crap out of Armstrong, hits a jackhammer, and pins him.
Excuse me, a jack slam?
I almost said jack slam. Clean finish number 2 for Nitro.
You know, this is not news, but this Goldberg fella was pretty special.
That's very, very true.
You think about all the guys that various promotions have done win streaks with. Mm-hmm. For a while, you probably have forgotten, because everyone has, but they tried it with Wrath. He went on a win streak for a while.
All right.
Crimson.
Crimson's one I remember. Sid.
Well, Sid was a gimmick, but Goldberg had a look and intensity that nobody else had. You could do this. You could take anybody and do the win streak, and I'd say probably at least 50% or more, it would start to get them over. I mean, it worked with Ryback.
True.
I got nothing against Ryback, but
he ain't Goldberg.
Ryback was not pushed as Goldberg. But he went on a long win streak, and it got over. Now, the thing with Goldberg was, Goldberg had a special intensity that I don't think any of these other guys that have ever gone on win streaks have had. They were so lucky to come across this guy.
They really were.
And you want to know what else? Goldberg, being green, I think, was a key to this that nobody ever mentions. This guy was like a wild animal. If he would have been like a polished, great worker that had been around the world for 10 years, and they signed him, and he was like, I'm trying to think of a great worker, I don't think he would have gotten over. Maybe it would have. It's hard to say. But the fact that this guy would, like, he'd stumble around, and, like, he went for that press slam, and it was fucked up, but he was so strong that he saved it, and he made it work, and it looked even better. It was like, this is a caveman here, and they're massacring people.
When he stumbled, and he did stumble sometimes, but it never looked like he was clumsy. It looked like he was out of control.
Yeah.
In a good way. So yes, that was awesome. DDP talked about what happened to the Giant, said it sent chills down his spine, and what Nash had done, it just wasn't right. So Mike Tenay appears on the entrance ramp in a jacket that may have actually been tailored to fit the Giant. It was huge on him. He says, here is the footage of Giant's injury. They showed it a dozen times, often in slow motion. And what happened was, Nash goes for a powerbomb, gets him up a some, but not all the way up, and then he just let go. And Giant fell on his head, had the back of his head and neck. Nash fell sort of off to the side, and Bobby Heenan would later claim he was trying to land on him, but missed. Now, aside from the fact that's 500 pounds on your neck, and that's very, very bad for you, this did not look as scary as, for example, the Dragon Suplex in Omega Okada.
Hey, I was thinking the same thing. If you were watching a lot of All Japan in the mid-90s,
yeah,
you probably thought nothing of this.
Yes.
Now, if you only watched American Pro Wrestling, if you only watched WWF and WCW, you probably saw this footage and thought, this guy's done for. He's dead for sure. Mm-hmm. After another 19 years of independent pro wrestling and crazy fuckers dropping each other on their heads, it is funny to look back and that didn't look that bad at all.
In fact, do you remember on Sunday night when we watched Bubba Rogers do the Bubba Spike?
Yes.
That guy fell at the exact same angle as the Giant here.
Now I'm going to give these people credit. Giant did not get hurt. He was fine. Mm-hmm. He was totally fine afterwards. But it looked so goddamn devastating that they turned it into an angle and they milked everything that they could out of it. So Congratulations to them.
You got that one right.
Yeah. Now, granted, the angle they came up with was fucking idiotic, but we'll get to that.
I've forgotten, so it'll be a surprise
No,
to
it's
me.
on this show.
Oh, all right.
They banned the Powerbomb.
That. Yes, well, well, it's right here. J.J. Dillon comes out, and he says, athletes in all sports are getting bigger and faster, and every sport has to deal with how to keep things safe with this new generation of modern athlete, and there have been changes to helmets in football and pads and hockey. The fans already have no patience for this. They just want him to go away and bring out some wrestling.
Well, Jesus Christ, he ranted for 10 minutes about sports.
Yeah.
It's like, I know the show's 3 hours, but get to the fucking point.
He says, I have not heard any impact on the Giants' condition, but it doesn't look good. So effective immediately, I am banning the Powerbomb. Been a long time since I've heard this much booing. This much passionate booing.
It's like he announced he'd signed Roman Reigns.
It was, actually. People were not happy to have the Powerbomb banned. JJ made it clear this does not just apply to Nash. Any wrestler who uses it will be disqualified and substantially fined. And if Nash ever tries it again, he'll be fined, he'll be disqualified, he'll be escorted from the building, and we will explore criminal prosecution. Okay, then.
Keep that in mind, everybody.
Conan versus Jerry Flynn.
Oh, yeah.
What a wacky battle.
It's Nitro, dude.
It was Nitro.
Only on Monday Nitro could you see Conan versus Jerry Flynn.
This is the wackiest match I've seen on Nitro since Conan versus IRS. So, it was a Styles class, but they did their best. The announcers are talking about rules changes through the years, how pile drivers used to be illegal and dives off the top ropes or to the floor were illegal, or even brawling on the floor. Conan looked to bang his head on the stairs trying to catch Flynn on a dive, but he survived. He went on to win with the Tequila Sunrise. So we are 3 for 3 on clean finishes on Nitro, so that may be a false memory.
Martial arts master Larry Zbyszko buried the martial arts when the match was over.
He did.
Yeah.
It's all about wrestling.
Got his own
all
gimmick.
about mat work. We go back to the Nitro party, where they talk to the guy who had sent in the tape.
So amazing. Fucking Jean interviews Kimberly. She's so excited to hang around all of these awkward men.
Yeah.
I mean, she, like Dasha, would have been more believable.
They had all changed into evening gowns, too, for this bit. Tenay interviews Mongo.
Oh, my God.
First of all, and there's a lot to get into here, it's the day after the Super Bowl, so Gene, being a good interviewer, uses that as a segue to start a conversation with Mongo, so it's natural instead of just asking, what are your thoughts? Mongo replies, I don't care about that sport anymore. I am a pro wrestler now. He says this while wearing his Chicago Bears jacket. He moves on. He is sick of new guys showing up in this company thinking they're hot stuff because of what they've done in other promotions. And out comes a man. On the stage, way behind them. He's dressed all in black. He has short hair. That's all we can see.
Honestly, the moment he came out, I thought, is that Robbie Rage?
I didn't know what the hell it was. It is revealed that it is, in fact, Davey Boy Smith, introduced in an unidentifiable manner. He comes out, he says, this is a quote. These are quotes you're about to hear. He says, the British Bulldog is in WCW. He needs a big bone to chew on. And looks at Mongo and says, you, my friend, could be that bone. I'm not making any of that up. That's what they went with.
I love the idea that, as noted, this Davey Boy Smith essentially paid a 6-figure fine to get out of his contract, out of loyalty to Bret Hart, and he went to World Championship Wrestling, and his first match is with Mongo.
See, I didn't know that part about what he had to do to get out of the contract.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to what my actual comments were at the time. But yeah, they set up Mongo versus Davey Boy for this show. Buff Bagwell versus Rick Steiner. Rick gets thrown outside, and Vincent goes over to work him over, and he's hitting these terrible forearms. And Rick, maybe just pissed off he had to try to sell for these. Either he hit the greatest worked punch of all time, or he just hit a cross right to the jaw and knocked Vincent on his back. It was so awesome. He just punched him right in the mouth. He goes up, hits a belly-to-belly on the middle rope, which is actually scarier than it's on the top rope because you got to get the guy's feet over. Vincent survives. He trips Rick. Scott Steiner runs out to murder him. And Rick hit the diving bulldog, which is the same move he would later use to break Buff's neck in real life. He makes a cover, but Scott throws Vincent into the ring for the DQ. So we have our first DQ countout whatever on Nitro.
I should add, by the way, that when I watched this match, it's Rick Steiner, Buff Bagwell, and Bagwell broke his neck taking the bulldog from Rick Steiner. And I thought, I don't think it happens on this show because somebody would have mentioned it on Twitter or something. So he goes for the bulldog off the top, and I thought, holy fuck, that's it! And then Bagwell rolled outside. Because you see, the reason that Bagwell broke his neck is Rick came off the top with the bulldog, and Rick was very light with it, and so Bagwell's head slipped out of the headlock position. Rick landed, and Bagwell took a bump and bonked his head on Rick's body.
Yes. That
same fucking thing happened here.
But almost.
It was the exact same thing.
Rick flies by, the back of his arm grazes Buff's head, and he falls down in front, and Buff falls forward.
And lands on him.
Yeah.
It was the exact same thing. And I thought, you know what? That's how they did this spot together. Like, I mean, obviously it was a freak accident, but it wasn't a freak accident in the sense that it was just some crazy thing that had never happened or would never happen. Mm-hmm. They always did the spot like this.
Yes.
And unfortunately, it was just the wrong...
There's a reason no one else did it like this.
Yeah, it was just... my mind was blown when I saw it. I was like, God damn, that's the exact same thing that happened.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the broken neck happened on Thunder.
I'm pretty sure.
But I do remember watching it over and over again. But
it may be like this week because they're feuding. It's got to be coming soon. I'll find it.
Yeah, I guess you're right. That's terrible to think about. So... Scott Steiner also gets angry and throws down the ref, who jumps up and says, "That's a $5,000 fine." And DiBiase's screaming at Scott, and Rick is screaming at him, and the ref's screaming at him, and Scott just leaves and shouts into the camera, "I hate referees. They're incompetent, and they're stupid." Got it.
April 22, so it's a few months away.
Okay. Kevin Nash and Eric Bischoff come out for a promo. I did find it an amazing coincidence when they compare themselves to a sitting president who would claim to be the target of media manipulation.
How about that?
Things never change. Nash says Luger and DDP... Yeah, Nash said Luger and DDP had said what he did was wrong. He owed it to himself and the people to say what had really happened last night. He and the Giant had gone to battle. He had taken everything that the Giant had to offer and come back strong. And Giant had looked in his eyes and said, "I can't go anymore." Everyone booed because they knew he was full of shit. And Nash says, "I was a sportsman, so I gave him some coffee as a wake-up call." Because throwing coffee in people's faces is Nash's gimmick now. Then he hit a low blow. I'm assuming that's what happened. They didn't show it, and he was using code words and giving the low blow symbol with his arm. He says, at this point, Giant was crying like Old Yeller, and he needed to be put out of his misery. And as he's saying this, he's fake crying. And then he starts to cackle and says, "I stuck him on his skull." He says he no longer wanted to be known as Kevin Nash. He wanted to be known as Big Sexy the Giant Killer. And he and Bischoff celebrated. Wayne Bloom versus Jim Neidhart.
Okay, first off, the moment Wayne Bloom came out, a thought crossed my mind. Where the fuck has John Nord been? I haven't seen him since that tremendous match that he had. I thought, you know what? Maybe he's going to come out right now. They got 3 hours, for Christ's sake. He's under contract. Instead, it's Jim Neidhart. Now, later on this show, we saw Davey Boy Smith versus Mongo, which was fucking terrible. I'm quite certain that this was not only worse, but like 1,000 times worse. This Wayne Bloom Jim Neidhart match was so unbelievably hideous. And they had my favorite spot where they're in a headlock. One guy pushes the other guy to the ropes, and they stop. And they start talking. And they talk. And they talk. And they talk. And they talk. Finally, they shoot each other off, and the big fucking spot is, watch the hip toss. That was a spot.
If I didn't know who Jim Neidhart was, and I was not familiar with the Hart Foundation the rest of his career, if you showed me this and told me this is Jim Neidhart's first match ever in front of a crowd, I would have believed you, no question. He was unbelievably bad here.
Dude, Wayne Bloom's Heat? There's nothing Neidhart's ever done as bad as the Heat segment with Wayne Bloom.
Well, I'm thinking,
my God, this was bad.
Wayne Bloom's Heat included the single worst suplex attempt I've ever seen. Wayne tried a double arm suplex. I'm pretty sure neither man actually left the mat. They just sort of fell to the side. And I don't think it was Wayne's fault, other than the idea of, I'm going to do a double arm suplex to Jim the Anvil Neidhart. That is a bad idea. Eventually, Wayne tries something off the ropes. Anvil turns it into a power slam for the win. It's deep into the negative stars, although I must say it was a clean finish.
Like, unless this was a rib, whoever put this together had to be like a certified moron. Like, how can you book wrestling and see a list of names and when booking not think about, well, what's the match going to be like in the ring? Is it going to be any good or is it going to be bad? Is it going to be one of the worst matches of all time? Like, how could you have a roster of 250 people or whatever they had at the time and see Wayne Bloom and Jim Neidhart? Let's put that on live fucking television. Like, who could think that? It's either a rib or this person should have been banned from ever booking wrestling again. And Mongo, and on his fucking debut, Bulldog.
We'll get to that. My last comment on this is, at some point, I need to go back and watch some old Hart Foundation matches, because one of two things happened. Either Neidhart got impossibly worse. He declined more than anyone ever, or Bret Hart is the best wrestler of all time by light years if he carried this guy to a dozen good tag team matches.
It's possible it's both.
It may be both. Bret Hart may be the best wrestler of all time, and Neidhart may have suffered the most decline of all time. Because I watched a lot of Hart Foundation matches, and I was aware that Bret was the better part of the two, but I don't remember him being this bad ever, even one time. And his run, by the way, he didn't have a lot of matches on TV with the Hart Foundation in 97 on Raw, but when he was in there, he was terrible too. So yes, I need to go back and watch these 80s matches. Perhaps my vision as a child was blurred, and I was not aware of how terrible Jim Neidhart was. Tenay called Ray Traylor out for a promo. Ray does a very popular speech about how the people in charge in wrestling...
This guy was trying to win an election.
It was!
Total common man promo.
The fans are in charge.
He says there's fans out there. There's rich fans. There's poor fans. Thin fans. Fat fans. But all of us are better than anybody in the NWO.
That's right.
And he's looking for a fight with this Kevin Nash tonight that's hurt the Giant.
I saw you put the Giant on the shelf, but I'm not scared of any man. I challenge you to a fight. Chavo Guerrero and Psychosis. They're doing this match.
They had a match on a show. That's the best I can give you.
The only thing I got to say about this is Psychosis is doing that spot where the guy's sitting on the top turnbuckle and you stand on the ropes next to him and then jump over and do a Hurricane Rana. He goes up there to stand on the top rope, and Chavo apparently decides, I don't want to take this move. And he just shoves Psychosis off the ropes, and Psychosis screams and falls out of the way of the floor. Like Wile E. Coyote. And I laughed and I laughed and I laughed. Psychosis here was doing one of those matches where he'd sell when he was on defense, but as soon as he was on offense, he was totally fine. And he eventually won with the Tijuana Jam. That was a clean finish. So this Nitro was faring much better in clean finishes than I recall. Scott Hall came out for a survey.
This was amazing. So you got to keep in mind that at the peak of the Wrestling Wars, 12 million people were watching wrestling on television. WCW's best pay-per-view of all time ever did just over 500,000 buys. So most of their pay-per-views were well under that. So if you were one of the millions of people that never watched WCW pay-per-views, Hall comes out with this fella. Who the fuck is this fella, you're wondering? He's described as Louis Spicoli. Oh, Louis Spicoli. I can't even remember seeing Rad Radford on WWF anytime recently. He's just a fella out there. Mm-hmm. Then Hall starts talking about Dusty Rhodes.
Well,
Dusty's apparently joined the NWO.
Yeah.
And again, if you were one of the millions who didn't watch pay-per-view, first off, you're wondering, Dusty Rhodes? When's the last time we saw Dusty Rhodes? Well, you see Dusty did commentary on the pay-per-views that you never watch. We never see him on Nitro.
No.
Like, I can't remember the last time we saw Dusty on Nitro. And they just come out here, and they just talk over the heads of everybody. They barely acknowledge what's going on. You're just baffled. Like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah. Well, he's out there with this fella, as you note, and this fella's holding tag belts, and Scott's talking, and Scott says, here in the NWO, we got a new member. And I think, okay, he's going to talk about this fella holding the belts, and the new member is Dusty Rhodes. I was like, what? Well, where's Spicoli come? And by the way, making matters worse, Larry Zbyszko is talking about Spicoli like they have a long history. Perhaps there was a Spicoli-Zbyszko feud, which is hard to say. A Spicoli-Zbyszko feud on Saturday night we never knew about. I don't know. But apparently, Larry Zbyszko and Louis Spicoli are lifelong rivals. So, Scott says this guy, I think he said he's trying out for the NWO. I'm not sure what he said. But he says he's got a match now with Juventud Guerrera, and he wished him luck. So Hall is going up the ramp, and Juvi's coming out, and Hall offers a handshake, and Juvi blows him off, and Hall teases jumping in from behind, but thought better of it and goes to the back. So doing this match, and very quickly they cut to the back, where Randy Savage drives up in his rental car.
This was another one. Randy's alone, and he's mad.
Randy's alone, and he's mad.
All the announcers tell us is he's angry, and he's showing up without Hogan or Liz. Mm-hmm. So he runs down to the ring.
Stop right there. You're actually getting ahead of this. This was, in fact, a live shot, because Randy zooms up in his rental car, gets out, goes to the back of the car, and spends, seriously, 10 seconds struggling mightily to get the trunk of his car open.
Yes.
Including at one point shouting, "What's going on?" He finally grabs his bag and walks into the building.
Listen, I'll let you do the details, but here's the point of all of this. The guy's running the ring. He's obviously mad. All right? We can put the pieces together and figure out that he's mad at Luger about something. They keep pointing out that Liz is not with him. All you need to know is at some point during this segment, Liz then randomly showed up, and then she left with him at the end.
Yeah.
What's happening?
I don't have any idea.
What the fuck is happening? I'm deliberately not going back to find out what's happening because I'm trying to pretend like I'm a fan watching Nitro every week.
Yes.
And I'm fucking baffled by all of this.
Don't understand either. So Savage runs out, and at the point he runs out, Juvi's in the ring, Spicoli is not. So Savage attacks Juvi for the DQ. So we'll add that to our DQ count out whatever file. He beats up Juvi, and he starts to make a promo. Or starts to cut a promo. And he's pissed at Hogan, he's pissed at Nash, he's pissed at Luger, he's running down everyone and wants to kill somebody. As this is going on, young Mr. Spicoli, making his Nitro debut, chooses to get in the ring with a fired up Randy Savage so he can hit a move on Juvi. I couldn't... You can see in the background, Savage is talking and you see Spicoli pick up Juvi and hit a DVD.
It's better. Spicoli has been... Spicoli's been DQ'd. Mm-hmm. Savage is a fucking wild man on the mic, ready to kill somebody. Uh-huh. Spicoli gets in the ring. He grabs Juvi. He hits his move. He tells the referee, count the pin.
I see.
The referee's like, dumb shit, the match is over. I'm not counting the pin for you. So Spicoli responds by standing up. He looks at the hard camera, and he raises both hands in victory. Savage is still ranting. I gotta admit, this was my favorite thing on the show. I was like, this guy is a perfect fucking idiot. Like, that's his character. He's just an idiot.
That is true.
He's trying to get in the NWO. He's a lackey, and he's an idiot. And then, of course, he goes up to pat Savage on the back, and Savage did the same thing he did to Bischoff, where he spins around and punches you. I'm like, this has got to be the scariest spot anyone's ever taken in wrestling. I mean, I'd rather take Nash's powerbomb onto my shoulders than that fucking spin around punch by this crazed man.
An insane Randy Savage is going to turn around and punch you.
And he grabs me, throws him over the top rope, and I thought, you know what? You lucked out, dude. You got off easy. All he did
Yes!
was punch you and throw you over the top rope. You're lucky that's all that happened to you.
For those of you who maybe are not familiar with Randy Savage, not like I knew him personally or anything, but everything I've ever heard is that the Randy Savage you saw off screen was about 90% the same as the Randy Savage you saw on screen. And when he was in a mood like this, just steer clear. So, at this point, out comes pretty much all of the NWO. Definitely Hogan and Nash. As they come out, Savage sees them and he just randomly cries out, "Bunch of clowns!" Bischoff's trying to make peace. Savage says, "None of you cared when I lost to Luger at the pay-per-view. You don't care, Nash. You don't care, Hall. You don't care, Bischoff. Hogan, you don't care, and you make me sick." I should add, by the way, Savage was still wearing black and white, but there was no NWO logo anywhere on his body. So Hogan says, "Yeah, we came down during your match. Things weren't going your way. Hall and I hoped that seeing us at ringside would be enough incentive for you to overcome Lex Luger outshining you." Everyone thought it was a sick burn. Savage was openly laughing at it. Savage says, "I've got 3 things to say. 1, the match wasn't over. I had things in control. 2, you had not been coordinated when you got there, so I don't need you in my matches anymore. 3, you, Hogan, you have lost confidence and control since losing the world title." Nash was appalled. Nash goes to Hogan and points, and his facial expression and body language says, "This is it. We need to end this and end him right now." Hogan pushes him back, says, "Listen, I beat Sting twice. I'll get the title back in February." And then he starts to get in Savage's face. So Savage leaves the ring and grabs a chair. Savage gets the mic back, says, "You need to leave me alone. I'll take care of Luger. You focus on getting the belt back." And Savage leaves. Liz follows him. Everyone else stays in the ring. And it was not a breakup, but it was very clear that Randy needed some space.
Wasn't bad. It was convoluted and somewhat confusing, but the overall message was solid.
I don't understand.
There's dissension in the ranks.
I don't know what caused the dissension in detail, but the performances were so great, I don't care that much. Randy Savage is pissed at everyone, so he's going to go it alone for a while.
Dude, there's so much show left. We got to get going.
All right. Nitro girls are playing limbo with frat boys back at the party. Gene interviews a blindfolded man who cannot hear his question. So he pins the frat logo on a poster of the Nitro girls. He immediately pulls down his blindfold and grabs one of them around the waist. Easy, Tiger. Slow down there. Gene says, "We have a Sting knockoff here." That's the exact words. A Sting knockoff. They bring in a guy in a Sting costume with black hair and makeup and a trench coat, and it says, "Kimberly, what grade do you give this man?" Kimberly Page, having the least fun she's ever had at any party ever, holds up a 2.
Wow.
Just a big giant 2. Harsh.
It's like a granny rating.
It was, actually. Mortis versus Raven. If I don't say this enough, I love Mortis' theme song. It's excellent ring music.
All you need to know is Vandenberg took the ref, Mortis got a chair, missed, and then Raven won clean with the DDT.
Yeah.
Is he a babyface now, or what the hell's
Do I
going on?
count that as a clean finish?
Yeah.
He did some stuff before. It was an ODQ match. The finish was clean. All right, clean finish there. Well, that's about it. Yeah. Add Mortis, by the way, to the list of guys who will sell when he's on defense, but then as soon as he hits one move, he's back to 100% fine. Raven sold more after the match, in fact, than Mortis did during it. I want to point that out. This led to DDP versus Wrath.
All I'm going to say about this is I talked to DDP a lot in the 90s, and I was also a wrestler in the 90s. And I was watching this match, and it suddenly hit me that DDP has a very obvious way of setting up his matches, and this was one of them. He has a spot where the heel gets the heat.
Yes.
He sells and sells and sells, and then the heel tries the same move later, but the babyface counters, and that begins his comeback.
Right.
That was every fucking match I ever did.
Great.
I would bet you anything that he's the guy that gave me that.
You could do worse.
Because I didn't get it from Tim.
No.
I'm pretty sure that's where I probably got it. And it's a fine way to do a match.
Yeah, it works out. It
Works
makes sense
every time.
Yes, there's a reason it's so popular. Also, by the way, Bobby Heenan's impression of Randy Savage trying to rent a car, money. So this is one of Wrath's better matches. I realize that it's not saying much, and I don't mean much. But it was totally fine. In fact, probably good. Mortis tries to interfere. Page bonks the heels together, hits the diamond cutter to wins. All is right with the world. That is also a clean finish. So I was way too hard on this Nitro in that aspect when we started the show. Mortis tried to help Wrath to his feet, but Wrath, apparently confused, laid him out with the death penalty. And then Vandenberg was pissed, but when Wrath got to his feet, Vandenberg ran away. Sinead brings Bret Hart out for a promo. Bret said his win over Ric Flair at the pay-per-view had been very tough. He was not there to gloat. He thanked Ric for a great match. Said it's not true that to beat the man, you got to beat the man, you got to beat the man, because Flair will always be the man.
That's the kind of promo somebody cuts after their rival does a job for them.
Yeah. Okay. So, Bret says, as for the world title, I am cool with whatever decision Roddy Piper makes. I am there to prove I can be world champion no matter who has the belt. And sooner or later, I will be the best WCW champion the company's ever had. And that's it. They're starting to go to break. And I'm thinking, well, that was a really good promo. That was a nice, simple, short-to-the-point segment. And that was when I realized Bret Hart was wearing black jeans tucked into pink and white cowboy boots. That has to be pointed out.
Not a lot of quality control with the outfits on Nitro, I've noticed.
At this point, all I wrote was, back to the Nitro party. Anything happen?
Nothing.
I think we're all just bored of this by now. Saturn versus Booker T.
All right, listen. First off, 3 hours is way too long.
That
for
is
this
exactly the point on the show where I noticed this too.
Patently
The crowd
obvious.
is dead. They're sleepy. They want to go home.
So Saturn debuted a little while ago, and I liked his debut a lot. He had some cool suplexes. Thought he looked good. I was bombarded with feedback about how much Saturn sucked. I was told, Brian, you've got to watch this match with Booker T and report back on whether you still think this guy is any good. Now, I tried. I really tried to watch this match, but it was so fucking boring. It's a total blur. So I guess Saturn must not be that good, because I couldn't even pay attention to the match because it was 2 hours into a 3-hour show, two guys having a match. We'd seen 100 matches and 1,000 segments. Goddamn Flock runs in for the DQ.
That's number 3.
I was furious at this point. Tenay says, I thought they were banned from ringside. Bobby says, well, they can't do that. So I'm thinking, well, where the fuck is security? There is no security. Rick Martel runs down to make the save. This is so bad.
It's the same Booker Martel segment we've seen like 5 times now.
Yeah.
Only thing I can add
I'm
to
losing my temper here.
The only thing I can add to this is that we have said many times that in the 3rd hour of Raw, Michael Cole sounds apoplectic, or that's the wrong word. What's the one that fall asleep?
Narcoleptic.
Narcoleptic. And the other announcers are just as bad. And we always say, man, back in the day, these announcers were so excited. Let me tell you something. 3rd hour Nitro, Tony Schiavone, bored. Bobby Heenan, bored. Larry Zbyszko, bored.
How could you not be bored? It was a boring match.
On a very long show. Oh, Chris Jericho comes out in a Rey Mysterio t-shirt with a Cruiserweight title. Fans are calling him very rude names you will not hear chanted in 2017 on Raw. He said, I'm trying to piece this together because, like you, I didn't watch the pay-per-view. Apparently, Jericho won the title and then attacked Rey's bad knee after the match. Jericho insisted he would never intentionally hurt Rey. He began to fake cry and thank all the people standing by him. He asked Rey to keep him abreast of his progress. Nobody wants Rey back more than himself, and they called him rude names again. Mongo versus British Bulldog.
As noted, the British Bulldog debuts in a match with Mongo. Not only that, Bulldog sells virtually the entire match. Mm-hmm. Mongo falls down running the ropes. Mongo fucks up a delayed suplex. Mongo fucks up a power slam. The British Bulldog has to power Mongo up and do a shoot running power slam. Which, if you've ever thought, what would it look like to see a running shoot power slam? Well, I'll tell you, it looks like shit. This was horrible. It looked terrible. The match sucked, and it was hideous.
Now, I did not know what you mentioned earlier about Bulldog having to pay a fine to get out of his contract. All I could think when this was done is that I bet he went back to that curtain, went to the nearest payphone, because it was 1998, and dialed Connecticut and said, Vince, I made a mistake. I need to come back. I can't work here with this football player anymore. This was atrocious.
It was so bad. And I usually like Mongo bad matches.
No, this is not.
This was a level of bad.
This is not
way beyond.
This is not a good bad match. This is a fuck me over bad match. Kevin Nash versus Ray Traylor.
This one, I'm losing it here. Fucking Nash comes out, a top heel. He throws coffee in the eyes of Ray Traylor, who had cut a patriotic promo running for office, the biggest babyface in the building. Nash throws coffee in his eyes and hits a low blow. Now, first off, you're not allowed to fucking throw coffee in people's eyes. You're not allowed to kick him in the nuts. Nash does both, the ref just stands there. Fucking looking right at him. Nash then hits the banned powerbomb. Now the referee calls for the bell. Nash, laughing in the face of authority, gets a huge babyface pop.
Yeah.
Now let me tell you something. You can take your pick. Nash is supposed to be a top heel. So there are only two possibilities here. One, he was completely unprofessional and a total dick. Or he was a goddamn idiot that didn't have a clue. So go ahead and take your pick. It's one or the other. Then they come out.
Yeah.
They cuff him. Everybody's cheering Steve Austin.
Yeah, he is Stone Cold Kevin Nash here.
Dude.
He's laughing at about all. He's making jokes about Attica.
This company sucks.
He couldn't care less about this legal threat.
Making a mockery out of everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? People get mad. Sometimes you hear people. You mentioned Will Ospreay and the Young Bucks. And there are people in this business that hate the Young Bucks. And they hate Will Ospreay. And they hate these guys. They feel that they're making a mockery of wrestling. But you know what? Whatever you think of those guys, whatever you think of their matches, they're going out there and whether they're making a mockery of wrestling in your eyes or not, they're not purposely, intentionally making a mockery of wrestling. They don't go out there and go, you know what? I'm going to make a mockery of this business. They go out there and they do what they think is good, what they think will entertain the fans, what they think will give the fans their money's worth. It's their vision of this business. It is their artistry. That is not what Nash is doing here. He's just making a mockery of the business.
That, by the way, is DQ number 4 on Nitro. So they go to break. They come out. Here's what happened, everyone. Scott Hall comes out, and that takes a while. He runs down Larry Zbyszko. Larry leaves the announce desk. Security stops him. They go to commercial. They come back. We're told Larry's been taken out of the building. Larry is taken out of the building. All the crimes and violent attacks we have seen, Larry leaving the announce desk to stand up for himself is what gets you thrown out. We got Lex Luger versus Scott Hall. It's really bad. Really, really bad. They're trying to do the spot, the Shawn Michaels Diesel spot where they're doing punches in the corner, but you get pushed off, land on your back, roll your feet, and run over and do it again. Only, breaking news, Lex Luger ain't Shawn Michaels. This looked horrible. Eventually, Lex gets him up in the torture rack. As soon as that happens, Randy Savage runs out and attacks Luger for the DQ number 5. So all the number of DQs as far as actual matches, let me just start over. The percentage of DQs is much higher on Raw, but all the DQs on Nitro were at the end. Clean finishes at the beginning. So Savage runs out and attacks Luger for the DQ. Throws the ref out of the ring. Throws Hall out of the ring. Starts dropping elbows on Luger. He goes to the top rope. At this point, Sting descends from the ceiling. From his cable, he kicks Luger off the top rope and into the ring.
Okay.
That was insane.
That was worth sitting through the 3 hours of this show. You haven't watched Raw yet, have you?
The 2017 one, no.
I'm going to spoil this for you. There is a great segment where Roman Reigns, Kevin Owens, and Chris Jericho are all in the ring together.
Of course they are.
And the heels...
I already hate this.
No, you're going to love it. The heels want to lock Roman in the box. Why? I don't know. Because it would be mean. It's not like it's going to light on fire. It's not like they're going to drop it from the ceiling. They're just determined...
He's actually going into the shark water.
We're going to put this guy in the box.
Yeah.
So they go to put him in the box. He fights back. He throws Kevin Owens in the box. He locks the box shut. He commands them to raise the box. Why? I don't know. To be a dick. To the dicks. Anyway, the box is raising up in the air. And Chris Jericho. And maybe you'll argue this makes sense. Maybe you'll argue it won't. It doesn't matter. It was a great visual. Chris Jericho, who... you know wants to fuck Kevin Owens. And you know he's afraid of heights. Regardless, his plan is to grab the box as it's being raised to the ceiling. And in fact, he begins being lifted up into the air by the box.
All right.
He's hanging from it. He's kicking his feet.
Is he hanging below it?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's hanging below it. He's kicking his feet. It's raising him up in the air. And then Roman Reigns runs, and he fucking leaps high in the air, and he punches Chris Jericho with the Superman punch, and Jericho takes a pratfall into the ring. It's fucking great.
Okay, that sounds awesome.
It's completely preposterous, but it's awesome. That's exactly what this was. Randy Savage does a flying elbow, and he goes to do a second one, and they got a lower Sting. So Savage is standing on the top rope for legitimately 15 seconds.
At least, yeah.
Waiting. Finally, Sting starts coming down, and he's not directly over Savage, but he's close enough that he can swing his foot out.
Yeah.
And he swings his foot, and his foot bumps into Randy Savage, and Randy Savage, it's like Diamond Dallas Page in The Machine. He leaps off the top rope. He flies through the air, and he crashes on the mat. I died when I saw that. It was like, they fucking saved the day right here. They had an idea, and they pulled it off, mostly because of Randy Savage playing along. And then Sting got in there, put Savage in the death lock. Hogan and Hall came out and mocked Savage. I didn't care about the rest of it. The pratfall was the best.
That's the end of Nitro. So the final tally on this, between both shows, we had 10 clean finishes, most of them on Nitro, 1 fuck finish, and 8 DQs, countouts, whatevers. So almost 50%. Or bullshit.
All I know is this has got to turn around because I can't stand it much longer. That was Raw Nitro, everybody. 19 years ago this week. Not everything was better back in the day.
No.
That's it from here. We'll be back on Thursday, and we'll figure out what we're going to watch. We got to think of something, because we're done with Lucha Underground till at least April, and maybe later. And then Sunday it is the Royal Rumble. We'll have a post-show up with Craig. Gonna be a fun time. So check it out, everybody. That's it. We'll talk to you again after a while.
Bye.